Here is a long ways on this track with the heat that we have and everything, so it's just going to be a matter of finishing, and that's what we're trying to work on.
Of course, how taxing will this weather be on you physically and on the car?
Well, it'll definitely be taxing. I don't know if it'll be quite as bad as Cleveland was because of the not as much humidity. With the less humidity, it tends to evaporate any water you put on yourself or whatever in the car a lot better. So that tends to help cool you off a little bit. So I don't think it'll be quite as bad as there, but it will be tough on both.
The track is a little different up at 6 in that we have some new surface up there. Yesterday there were some complaints that the asphalt was starting to break up. Do you perceive that as a problem area on this road course?
Well, I don't think it'll really be a problem area. If it does start breaking up, it may get a little bit more slippery, but it's the same for everybody, so it doesn't matter. The only time that it really makes it bad is out if you get on the outside. You know, if you get out high and get out of the groove, where if it has been coming apart, the rocks are laying out there, and then it gets very slippery if you get out there.
We watched the rookies, but the spoiler may come from the defending national champion back in row number 5, Rick Mears. We'll be back with more from Riverside after these messages.
Back at Riverside, where 27 cars are lined up on the straightaway in front of us for the start of this Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500-kilometer race for Indy cars. This is the 50th race sanctioned by championship auto racing teams. Their first race was early in 1979, a race that was won by Gordon Johncock, who of course is injured and cannot be in this race. And the 50th race scheduled for Riverside International Raceway today. And we are just about ready to go for those famous words. We switch to the pit area. Tom Johnson, the publisher of the Los Angeles Times.
Mr. Tom Johnson, who has a few words, and then some very special words. Mr. Johnson? Thank you, Mike. First, to each of you this afternoon, on behalf of the Los Angeles Times and Budweiser, welcome to Riverside. We very much appreciate your being here this afternoon. You make possible a lot of charities here in Southern California for the benefit of a large number of young people. And we thank you very much. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Drivers get ready. Here is Bobby Rahal in car number 2, getting the engine started on his car. There is John Paul Jr., who won the 500-mile race at Michigan International earlier this year. Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy, who has won the pole position for the 4th time this year. And the other 27 drivers that are getting ready to go. Here is Mario Andretti driving the Budweiser car number 3. Mario looking for his 2nd win this year on the Championship Auto Racing Team's circuit. And now we'll review for you the official starting lineup for today's 500-kilometer race here at Riverside. In the front row in car number 33 from Milan, Italy, driving the Forsythe Skull Bandit March Cosworth, qualifying at 130, Teo Fabi. 2nd in the first row also Al Unser Jr. 2nd row Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal. In the 3rd row, Jeff Brabham and Pete Halsmer. In row number 4 will be Kevin Cogan from Redondo Beach, California, and John Paul Jr. from Lawrenceville, Georgia. In row number 5, Rick Mears, the defending champion. Alongside will be Jose Legarza, car 55. Row number 6, Roger Mears, car number 9 from Bakersfield, California, and car 30, Howdy Holmes from Ann Arbor, Michigan. The 7th row, car 20, Danny Angayas from Santa Ana, California, and Tom Sneva in car number 5. Row number 8, Chris Neifel, car number 72, alongside Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico. In the 9th row, Tony Bettenhausen, car number 10, and Mike Mosley, car number 18, Mike from Fallbrook, California. In the 10th row, car number 21, Pancho Carter from Brownsburg, Indiana, and Dick Simon in car number 22. The 11th row, Greg Leffler from Eagle, Michigan, and Steve Chassie in car number 56, Steve from Indianapolis, Indiana. In the 12th row will be car number 47, driven by Bob Ward from Santa Ana, California, and Desiree Wilson, car 34. Then in the 13th row, car number 38, Phil Kaliva from Hermosa Beach, California, in car 46, Jerry Carl. all alone in row number 14, the 27 starter for today's race, Tom Klausler from Northville, Michigan, in car number 48.
Even though Teo Fabi won the last race in the trail, he was the fastest qualifier here again. He's an experienced road racer. I don't think that anybody is a real clear-cut favorite for this race. There are so many people up front who could do well. I believe that Rick Mears is really on the verge of maybe that next victory. Let's watch him, particularly in the early stages of this race. And you know something else? There's a lot of sentiment for Al Unser Jr. I'm not so sure that I'm not among those who share in that sentiment.
As we told you, this is a 3.3 mile road course, and let's examine it a little bit more in depth. It has 9 turns. After crossing the start-finish line, the cars head through turn number 1, then through a series of S's, up a hill to turn number 6, down a hill to turn 7, then up again to turn number 8 before entering a long backstretch where speeds have reached 195 miles an hour in practice and in qualifying here. After they negotiate the backstretch, they set up for a very sweeping turn number 9, in which the speed doesn't scrub off that much, and then they head once again for the start-finish line and turn number 1. Of course, what we'll be looking for at the start of the race is turn number 1, and then that series of S's, turns 3, 4, and 5, before they reach a very sharp right-hand turn number 6. There are the S's that we referred to, and the field has already moved through them, but that'll be the first challenge for these IndyCar drivers here this afternoon.
The field right now is coming through turn number 8 and now down the long backstretch. At the end of the long backstretch is what is known as turn number 9. And all the drivers to a man will tell you, you have to be fast in turn number 9 to do well here at Riverside.
Field being led through turn number 8 now, and one of those who has done exceptionally well in qualifying for this weekend, Jeff Brabham in car number 99.
Well, Brabham has picked up the ride in the Craco team car number 99. Jeff is truly one of the international stars of automobile racing. Most of the drivers will tell you there is Jeff in that bright yellow blue trim number 99 in the middle of the screen, right behind Bobby Rahal and Pete Halsmer. Brabham has not had a steady ride in the 1983 season, but when he has been in a race car, he's been very strong. He sat on the pole here a couple years ago, and if things are right in that race car, Brabham's going to be in it.
This is a shot of the cars going down the backstretch. Now, just to the right of your picture is the area in which Dick Simon crashed last year. He went up that hill right under the crosswalk. And as you saw in the opening of the show, that was a terrific crash, but Dick Simon walked away from it. He's here again this afternoon. They go into this very slight dogleg, which is not named as far as a turn is concerned, but the dogleg will lead them then to turn number 9.
Now, when you're in turn number 9, as we take a quick look at Jose Lee Garza, you got to be able to run not only the low groove, but also the high groove. Jose Lee Garza, he's been coming on here in the mid-season. Jose Lee came to the IndyCar circuit a couple of years ago as an acknowledged, experienced driver in road racing. Garza stumbled a little bit in 1982. In 1983, the year started out slowly for him, but at Elkhart Lake, the most recent road course race, Garza was very strong. Many felt that he had a chance to win, as a matter of fact. He crashed off course at one point, had some damage to the race car, aerodynamic damage, but still, he was certainly among the 5 fastest cars in the racetrack. From Mexico City, Jose Lee Garza, maybe somebody else to watch here today.
The qualifying speeds range from 130.712 miles an hour. That was the speed turned in by Teo Fabi, down to 92.4, the slowest speed by Jerry Carl. The points battle for the PPG IndyCar World Series. Al Unser Sr. is in the lead at this point with 101 points. Rick Mears, the defending champion, is second with 67. Then it really tightens up. Tom Sneva is third with 66 points. Tom, of course, the winner of the Indy 500 this year. Mario Andretti is fourth in the point standings with 53. And Al Unser Jr. is fifth with 52. Sixth, Teo Fabi, who has won the pole for 4 races but only entered victory lane on 1 occasion, that at Pocono International Raceway, has 50 points in 6th place. John Paul Jr., the winner of the Michigan 500 with 45. Mike Mosley, the consistent veteran from Fallbrook, California with 34 points. And Pancho Carter, with 33 points, is in 9th position in the PPG Kart IndyCar World Series standings.
We're looking at the points leader there, but remember, we are only about halfway, a little more than halfway through the season as we take a close-in look at Al Unser Sr. Halfway through, so even though he's got a nice lead in the point standings right now, it's by no means safe. There's a long ways to go. And by the way, of the 6 remaining races, ESPN will be with you for 4 of them, including the next 3. So we're going to have a good look at this series over the next couple of months.
The cars are approaching turn number 8 here as they're still warming up the tires and scuffing in the equipment, getting it ready for high speed that we will see in just a few moments. On the front row, once again, Teo Fabi and Al Unser Jr. Greg Leffler, car number 64, scheduled to start this race in 21st position, has stalled on the course, and it doesn't look good for Greg Leffler.
Oh, Bob, and the team was hoping for something nice to happen to him here today. This team did well here at Riverside a year ago. The Bob Soltall and Kathy Soltall team out of the Lansing, Michigan area, the Jet Engineering car. Always one of the most spectacularly painted race cars in the trail, and they really had high hopes for the Chevy engine, which just jumps off the corners. And Greg was feeling pretty good and pretty racy. Their goal was to go the distance here today, but they've lost power on the course. And incidentally, if we stay yellow because of Greg Leffler, this race officially will begin this time around. Lap 1 actually begins on this pass, even if we remain yellow.
All right, the pace car does remain out on the racetrack. It will be accelerating and pulling off momentarily. The field being led through the dog leg now, approaching turn number 9. Teo Fabi and Al Unser Jr. in row number 1. Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal in the second row. Brabham and Pete Halsber in row number 3.
Bob, the front 5 or 6 rows are anticipating green. If this yellow waves, it's got to wave early because we might have a dangerous situation here. The guys up front don't know that Greg Leffler has stalled on course.
And the yellow is being displayed rather prominently by the kart officials, and the pace car does stay out on the track, and all the drivers now are aware of it. Several of them are holding up their hands to the drivers in back of them, indicating stay off of the throttle and keep it cool for at least another lap while we get the Greg Leffler situation taken care of. So 26 cars now are on the starting grid, and Greg Leffler is waiting to be started on the race course. Let's go down to Gary Lee for a report.
We are indeed prepared for a very active day here in the pit area. Some pit strategy being employed by the Roger Penske crew of Al Unser Sr. and Rick Mears. Usually, we see them in the first pit coming into the pit area. Today, they're the far pit at the pit exit. Why? Well, when they qualify fast up in front, the fast teams get to pick where they want to pit. Usually, they get to pick. They pick the first one in. This time, they're starting back away, so Roger says, we took the last pit. That way, there's no confusion in finding our pit area in the middle of the pits. So consequently, they have plenty of room to come in under speed, and they're right at the very end, so they're right back on the racetrack immediately after the pit stop. And just to practice for the 2-car team yesterday, Rick Mears was doing what we call in planing, touch and goes. He's coming in, stopping, making sure exactly where the crew is, exactly how fast he can come in if his teammate is also parked in the pit area. So it's some pit strategy because it's a very active day in the pit area, over 500 kilometers.
All right, there's Mario Andretti, car number 3. Mario has qualified here this afternoon at 129.472 miles an hour. They have 2 qualifying sessions, one on Friday afternoon and one on Saturday afternoon, and the fastest turned in during those 2 periods was the official qualifying speed, and Mario had a 129.4. The only driver in excess of 130 miles an hour was Teo Fabi. The time, 1 minute 30 seconds and 88 hundredths of a second. Well, as the yellow remains on Riverside International Raceway because of the stalled car of Greg Leffler, we will take a break and be back for the start of this race. 500 kilometers to go at Riverside. Work being done in one of the turns here at Riverside. Steve Edwards, the director of safety for Championship Auto Racing Teams, is putting down some quick dry and scrubbing it in. Apparently, Greg Leffler lost an engine and dumped some oil on the racetrack. Now we see Greg's car being towed into the pit area, so apparently it's going to be all over early for Greg Leffler, who had high hopes in this event.
Well, this is not what the teams planned for, and too many of these laps under the yellow flag there's a possibility here that it might really tamper with some of the setups, particularly in the engine compartments. The faster you run, actually, the cooler, because you've got more air flowing in, and the cars are set up to do that. So not only are the drivers anxious to go racing, but the crew chiefs down in the pits got to be biting their fingernails right now. They need to go racing for the purpose of mechanical parts of these race cars, as well as the drivers.
Well, earlier in the year, the Pat Patrick team consisted of Danny Ungaius and Johnny Rutherford and Chip Ganassi and Gordon Johncock, and now we're down to one car. Danny Ungaius, the sole driver in that team this race.
Oh, it's been a really tough year for Pat Patrick, and you really have to feel for him. Gordon Johncock, of course, laid up with severe lower leg injuries probably for the rest of the year. They lost Johnny Rutherford for half of the season. Rutherford, he's ready to go, and under normal circumstances, he would have been in the race today, but they're just lean on equipment. They've had so many crashes, and mostly because of mechanical failures, breakdowns and stress parts and so on, that they're now down to one race car, and they've got a 6-time winner, Danny Ungaius, behind the wheel here. And all the sponsors, by the way, are on the race car, so everybody's getting their exposure.
Now this race has officially started. We are counting the laps under yellow. They are in lap number 2. The pace car has accelerated greatly down the backstretch, and we anticipate a green flag this time around. The Greg Leffler car has been removed from the racetrack. The oil dry has been put down, and things look good now for the start of this race. The pace car comes out of turn number 9 as the field goes into turn number 9, but we see that the yellow light on top of the pace car remains on, and that means that we will not get a green flag this time around. Well, you just can't take a chance in terms of safety, and obviously there is a problem on the racetrack, and so they must do everything they can to assure that the track is in absolutely perfect condition before the green flies.
Well, I think what confused the drivers that time, Bob, was they saw the pace car peel away and tear off at a higher speed, and the drivers normally recognize that as a signal. We're going to go green this time. I'm a little surprised, frankly, the green flag didn't fly, and I was a little fluttering myself in the heart when it came down for the past the start-finish line this time out of turn number 9. But the one-lap signal went up as they passed the start-finish line this time. We've completed 3 laps under yellow. The drivers have done a very interesting thing here. They've done it on their own, Bob. Look what they've done. They've fallen down into single file. Unless I missed a signal, perhaps they have been signaled to go into single file. We may go green under this race in a single file formation.
Now the drivers at this point in the track are in turn number 6, a sharp right-hander. They go downhill into another sharp right-hand turn, number 7, then go up a hill into turn number 8. Teo Fabi is a few yards ahead of Al Unser Jr. and is the official leader of this race at this point, even though we do not have a green flag on the course.
There's turn number 7. It's a reverse camber off of a downhill line, a really tricky corner. They go through what is nothing more than a large hairpin, really. Now we go up to turn 8, which is a little bit reminiscent of the Carousel at the Mid-Ohio race course near Mansfield, Ohio, where we will be in just a few weeks. And out of turn number 8, then they're looking at the long backstretch turn, which leads into turn number 9, and that's on that long backstretch where the speeds are above 190. Now, we didn't have a chance to catch everybody on the speed gun this week, but the fastest that we heard was Mario Andretti at 193.
So the field now falls into 2 abreast formation once again as they have come out of turn number 8 and head down the long back straightaway. The lights on the pace car are out, and so that is a pretty good indication that we will indeed go green for this race. The delay caused by Greg Leffler apparently blowing an engine on the warm-up lap. Greg's car is in the pit area now, and the track has been taken care of. Desiree Wilson, car number 34, the only female in kart PPG racing, is ready for another race. She's starting this afternoon in 24th position, qualifying at 117.454 miles an hour. Now the field forming up in good formation and headed for turn number 9. Field closing up and everybody getting into 2 abreast formation for the assumed start of this race. The field turns off of turn number 9. They are approaching the main straightaway and the start-finish line. And the kart PPG starter has the green flag, displays it, and the Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500-kilometer race from Riverside, California is underway. They go through turn number 1, a very short straightaway. Now through the S's. There is turn number 2. Now turn number 3, turn 4, turn number 5, and they approach turn number 6. Teo Fabi has the lead at this point with Al Unser Jr. right behind. Bobby Rahal and Mario Andretti following. The field snakes its way through turn number 6 now. Everybody through that turn nicely. Here is the duel between Teo Fabi and Al Unser Jr. And Al Unser Jr. has the advantage as they go into turn number 7. And Al Unser Jr. has the lead. A very bold move there by Al Unser Jr. as he passed in an area of the racetrack that you normally don't think of as a passing point.
We've just gone over a hill there, and it's a blind left-hand corner, but little Al, he's very familiar with this racetrack. Remember the first time he ever drove an Indianapolis car was a year ago here at Riverside. He was pretty slick then, and look for him to be very fast all day today.
Cars come out of turn number 8 down the back straightaway. Al Unser Jr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico is showing the way with Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy in second position. They come into our view in our broadcast booth here as they head for turn number 9, get on the brakes and downshift slightly. They will shift about 15 or 16 times on this road course. And right at this point, they're running in about 4th gear, but they upshift to 5th gear now as they go down the main straightaway. Al Unser, Teo Fabi, Bobby Rahal, Mario Andretti, Pete Halsmer, John Paul Jr., Jeff Brabham, Jose Legarza, Kevin Kogan, and the rest of the field string by and complete lap number 4.
Immediately when the green flag drops here at Riverside, 500 kilometers out in the desert, a battle begins inside the minds of the racing drivers. This is not a typical race. 500 kilometers in the middle of the desert on a road course is an endurance contest. As we look at Al Unser Jr., our current leader, let's reflect back. What has happened here the last 2 years? Very few cars have finished this race. Some may have said, well, it's not so exciting because you had such a small number of cars finishing. But we found it incredibly dramatic because we had no idea what was going to happen until that final lap, the final turn. You've got to think strategy if you're a race driver, even at this early point in the race. More often than not, in this race, you're not going to be able to maximize your car's potential because you're going to burn out something and you won't finish.
Only 4 cars finished this race last year, and we possibly anticipate about the same to happen this year, as attrition we expect will be high here. Teo Fabi running in second position here behind Al Unser Jr. as they once again get to the end of the back straightaway and dive into turn number 9. A good look at Teo Fabi, who has done so well this year on the kart trail. 4 pole positions, 1 win at Pocono International Raceway. Al Unser Jr. continues to show the way, though, at 5 laps completed. Teo Fabi, Bobby Rahal, and Mario Andretti, then Pete Halsmer, John Paul Jr., Jeff Brabham, Jose Legarza, Kevin Kogan, Rick Mears, Howdy Holmes, Roger Mears, Tom Sneva, Al Unser Sr., then Danny Ngayas, Chris Neifel, number 18, Mike Mosley, as we look from the Goodyear blimp overhead. The pilot of the Goodyear ship, Columbia, Charles Russell from Downey, California, providing the overhead shots for us. Al Unser Jr. is the leader, and we're back in just a moment. Al Unser Jr., who started in second position, is leading the Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500-kilometer race from Riverside International Raceway. Running in second position is Teo Fabi. In third place is Bobby Rahal. Fourth is Mario Andretti, and fifth is John Paul Jr., and a man making a move as we continue to watch Al Unser Jr. is Kevin Kogan. We noticed that last time around as they came by the start-finish line, Kevin had passed Jeff Brabham and Jose Legarza and had moved up to 6th position.
We've got 3 cars in the pits already. Attrition has begun to set in. Pete Halsmer, Chris Neifel, and a new entry, Bob Ward out of Santa Ana, California, a Formula Ford driver who made his way to the IndyCar circuit for the first time this weekend, and his ride did not last long.
Al Unser Jr. making his way through turn number 9 onto the main straightaway. This will complete lap number 7, and you can see the interval that he has opened up between himself and second place Teo Fabi.
Incidentally, one of the items that takes the most abuse in the hot desert sun on this long race is the gearbox and the rear end. And already two of those cars that we mentioned earlier, Bob Ward and Chris Neifel, that is the report from the car communication system, what their problems are. Gearbox problems. The drivers tell you that you can go a little easier on the gearboxes out here. There is a way to help make those things last just a little longer. They actually end up shifting more rather than less to preserve the car, because they feel that when you're shifting more, it creates less wear on the engine, plus it makes you concentrate a little more and gives you a tendency to perhaps not miss as many shifts or jam that box around unnecessarily. So a lot of the top drivers were sharing with us yesterday, they'll actually be shifting more during the running of the race in an effort to make the gearbox last longer rather than less.
Unfortunate break for Pete Halsmer, who had qualified 6th fastest here today. He is one of those in the pit area. Pete, of course, suffered some leg injuries at Indianapolis and was involved in other accidents during the year and had done very well here at Riverside. Had big hopes for this race, but he's in the pit area right now. As we take a look at John Paul Jr., the driver of car number 12, the young man who grew up in Indiana, now making his home in Lawrenceville, Georgia. He was the winner of the Michigan 500 earlier this year, and a battle for that position down the backstretch between John Paul and Kevin Cogan. And Kevin Cogan takes him and moves into 5th position. So Kevin Cogan in car number 6 is 5th, and he has gotten around John Paul Jr.
We've seen Kevin Cogan run fast on a road course before. He holds the track record here. He absolutely decimated the field at Cleveland a year ago before a very freak incident knocked him out of that race. Cogan is the only guy who has really made a move here in the early stages of the race. He began the race in 7th position, and he's picked up a couple of positions, and most recently getting by John Paul Jr.
Kevin Cogan and John Paul Jr. we're watching here in the battle for 5th position through turn number 6. Bob Ward, by the way, who was in the pits, is back out onto the racetrack. Let's go down to Gary in the pit area for this report.
Rick Gallis is a happy car winner right now because his driver is out in front. Is this part of the strategy, or do you simply say, hey, run your own race, Al?
Well, we're running, our lap times are fairly conservative, so I think he's just running the way it feels good to him. We didn't, Al's going to decide what he wants to do, and he's just running it as he feels comfortable.
Although this is only his 2nd race on this track in a championship car, he has been on this track so many times, he probably knows it as well as anybody.
Well, we've run here in Super B, and he ran here last year in the Can-Am, and this has been our test track, so he knows it pretty well.
So right now, a big grin on the face of Rick Gallis.
Al Unser Jr. is the leader of this race. Following him, Teo Fabi, then car number 3, Mario Andretti. Again, we go back to 5th, 6th, and 7th position now as Jeff Brabham moves to the inside of John Paul Jr. and picks up 6th position. So it is now Kevin Cogan running 5th. In 6th is Jeff Brabham. 7th position, John Paul Jr. 8th is Jose Garza. 9th is Rick Mears. And in 10th position is Howdy Holmes in car number 30.
And sad to report for our fans in Anaheim, California and West Lafayette, Indiana, the two hometowns of Pete Halsmer. It's official now. Pete Halsmer, the first car out of this race with engine problems. And obviously, it's always a big disappointment when you drop out of a race early. But here's a team that has really had a roller coaster year. They've had some really high up moments and some really down low moments. And they hope to do well here. Pete Halsmer is an experienced veteran road racer. They came to the racetrack this weekend with a brand new engine, and there was a blue and white car slowing on that last shot coming through, I believe, turn number 5 or 6. I don't know if that was Cogan or not, but a couple laps ago, Cogan was ahead of that group. So let's see if we can pick that car up.
And our spotters indicate indeed it is Kevin Cogan that has slowed down on the racetrack after picking up several positions at the start. Talking about Pete Halsmer, his best finish has been a 2nd, and that was at the Cleveland 500 that we telecast live for you on ESPN. Now, Kevin Cogan, you can see raising his hand coming out of turn number 8 as we get a shot of going down the backstretch. Kevin Cogan in trouble here after running well in the early stages.
I also found out why our camera people couldn't find him. He took the shortcut. The card officials phoned it in, so even if he didn't pull out, he was going to be penalized anyway. So Kevin apparently out of power.
Last year at this race, Kevin, of course, started on the pole with a record-breaking speed. He finished in 10th position, dropping out with engine failure. His one-lap record here at Riverside is 131.467 miles an hour. He led last year, laps 11 through 50, but then dropped out with engine problems. By the way, this race is 95 laps on the 3.3-mile road course, 500 kilometers. Kevin Cogan rounding turn number 9 with the hand in the air, and Kevin Cogan is headed for the pits.
He obviously has got some kind of power, as Kevin has motored around the entire course since slowing down significantly. By the way, the only race that he has finished this year, picked the right one to do it in, was Indianapolis, where he came home in 5th position.
Kevin, as we watch him pull into the pit area, is pointing to the front end of that car and may indicate some handling or some tire problems. Meanwhile, we go back onto the racetrack and find our leader, Al Unser Jr., is traversing the backstretch here and approaching speeds of 180, 190 miles an hour. 10 laps have been completed. In which the car overturned several times. You can see he has made contact with the retaining wall in the left side of that car, but it appears that Dick is conscious and in fact is climbing out of the race car. I believe this is up in turn number 6.
No damage to the immediate front of the race car. It looks like just one of those incidents where you slide off the course here. When you get off into the desert sand, particularly on these bald head, skin smooth racing tires they make for Indianapolis cars, you just have no traction whatsoever.
Dick Simon is okay, but Pete Halsmer is not as happy because of an incident early in the race that's put him out.
But he's kind enough to stand by and talk to us about that engine woes in car 66, Pete.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. You know, it's just coming out of turn 8 and the engine let go. It's really too bad because the car was working really good. I thought it was going to be a good race. But
it's been an up and down season for you. The last time we saw you on the road course here on ESPN, it was at Cleveland. You had a great second place finish, and I know you had high hopes for Riverside this weekend.
Well, we did. You know, we qualified pretty well, 6th, and we felt like we were going to be in good shape here, but sometimes those things happen. We have to look and see if we can't figure out why it happened, and maybe we can solve it for the next one.
How are the track conditions?
Seemed good to me. I didn't see any problem with the track while I was out there.
An early retiree, now a spectator, Pete Halsmer, car 66.
And one of the other cars that is still in the pit area, Kevin Cogan. We understand it's a gear shift linkage problem on that car. Kevin awaits very patiently, still in the cockpit of that car, as the crew takes a look at it to see if they can get it back in running order.
I'm sorry, Bob. One of the problems that Pete Halsmer had at Cleveland was dehydration. He was really physically beat when the race was over. That crew had also gone to a lot of effort to devise ways of getting more water inside the helmet, more water to Pete. So I'm sure that they're disappointed in many ways. A lot of research and development went into building up with this race.
Chris Neifel, who was in the pits for several laps, has pulled back out onto the race course as we still watch our leader, Al Unser Jr., approaching a slower car here. Teo Fabi running second. And the lead that Al Unser Jr. has is 11 seconds. Third place, Mario Andretti. Fourth is Bobby Rahal. And fifth is Jeff Brabham. Of 1395 laps have been completed. Running in sixth position is John Paul Jr. and seventh is Jose Garza. Now full yellow has come out on Riverside International Raceway. That means the pace car will come out. There is something that is obviously more than can be handled in one area of the racetrack, so an overall yellow comes out.
The cars can go somewhere between 22 to 25 laps before they have to stop. This is a little too early for a routine pit stop, but still a lot of the leaders might use this as an opportunity to come in for a break.
And the pace car is over in turn number 9. As you can see, some fire retardant material being put on the car of Dick Simon. Dick is out, incidentally, and is pointing to the car. Obviously, he is okay. We had a chance to talk to Dick Simon about his crash here at Riverside last year.
When I was coming to Riverside here this time, I thought about that crash, and I thought there was a post out there somebody told me I almost hit. And I remember when I got here, I was sitting in the car getting ready to go out, and I thought, I'll take a look and see if I can see that post. You know, just now thought about it, I never have looked. I think once you get on the racetrack, you lose sight of the fact that you might have crashed. If you're a race driver, I think most of us are, when you get to Indianapolis type racing, you're truly a racer. I don't think an accident bothers you at all.
Truly an incredible crash, and as a matter of fact, that crash made the nationally syndicated television program. That's incredible.
Well, Simon was conscious throughout the entire thing, and he can sit down with you and actually recount almost second by second everything that went on. He remembers steering the car away from the crowd, which absolutely astounds me. He remembers getting up in the air, sailing which seemed to him to be an interminable amount of time, and bracing himself for each hit. He remembers hitting 3 times, looking up and seeing dark, seeing white, seeing sky. He even had a moment to recognize the bridge and was hoping that he wouldn't keep flipping until he got to the bridge, because he knew it would really be a serious situation.
So Dick Simon crashing in last year's event and is out of this year's event also after coming in contact with the wall. Here is Al Unser Sr., who is into the pit area for some work on that car. Al did not have a necessarily good qualifying run here this weekend. He started in 16th position, qualifying at 123.8 miles an hour. He's unofficially running in 12th position before entering the pits here.
Now, it looks like a pretty leisure stop, but it is a yellow flag, and remember, under yellow flag conditions, more than 2 minutes to get around, so he's in good shape at this moment.
Pace car is out there slowing the field because of the incident involving Dick Simon. He's okay. They'll get the car off the track, and then we'll go back to racing. When we do, we'll return to Riverside, California.
Blue Jays. We will take you back now to auto racing. We are moving ahead in the action. 60 laps have been completed in the LA Times Budweiser 500. Teo Fabi has the lead. Bobby Rahal in second. John Paul Jr. is in third. Number of drivers have dropped out due to some engine troubles. Al Unser Jr., who had the lead earlier, having ignition trouble. Desiree Wilson's car is stuck in first gear. We'll see you a bit later here in the Sports Center newsroom.
We are back live in Riverside, California, where Mario Andretti now trying to get refreshed after falling out. Mario, everything seemed to be falling into place for you this weekend. What happened?
Well, something all of a sudden just went into 9 on the lap that I come in. Just must have snapped in a gearbox. I don't know what it is. To me, it felt like the linkage or a bolt came off or something, but there was something clean because it gave me no indication to that point. Everything was just working as good as I could expect, so.
Now, we had talked to Darrell, and apparently the crew was very happy that everything was going copacetically.
Yeah, I was running very low boost, and I was getting terrific mileage. We would have made a distance in 3 stops, and I know most of them were planning on 4, so I think we had the thing going pretty well.
Was turn 6 a problem for you this afternoon?
Well, it could have been. Naturally, because it was digging up so bad that all you had to do is miss the line by a few inches and you had the wall. So, like I say, you had to drive very carefully and very precisely.
So obviously a very disappointed Mario Andretti out of the race in car number 3.
In car number 33 in the lead, Teo Fabi. Let's take a look and check the other drivers besides Mario Andretti who have dropped by the wayside. Pete Halsmer, the first out. Bob Ward, Dick Simon, Mike Mosley, Chris Neifel, and Jose Garza. Those 6 cars falling out of competition. Before, we had Kevin Kogan, Jeff Brabham, Phil Khalifa, Rick Mears, and now Mario Andretti out of the race. Teo Fabi, the leader. Second place, Bobby Rahal. Third place is John Paul Jr. In fourth position is the number 7 car of Al Unser Sr., and in 5th is Tom Sneva.
And Sneva's just about ready to go a lap down to Teo Fabi. Teo just raced up behind Sneva. I'll tell you, I don't know if Sneva saw him coming. Fabi is really standing on the button here at about lap 60 in this race.
There he gets around him. Teo Fabi going into the S's, puts a lap on Tom Sneva. Now we have, I believe, only 3 cars on the lead lap. Teo Fabi, Bobby Rahal, and John Paul Jr. Well, the thing that has knocked most of the drivers out of the race, gear shift linkage problems, and here's an examination of that problem.
This is the short straightaway leading into turn number 7 at the Riverside International Raceway. It's a blind reverse camber left-hand corner. Now remember back to Cleveland, there were no topography markers there, no trees, no grandstands. The drivers had no depth perception, no frames of reference for slowing down for the corners. But here at Riverside, a permanent racing facility, we have these markers along the course assisting the drivers as to when to slow down and when to shift entering the turns. Now, these are not mandatory traffic signals, and every driver uses them just a little differently. Jeff, the reference markers entering the corners, how do you use them?
Well, normally I normally just use them on going into turn 9, where there's big brake markers that goes like 3, 2, 1, and you know, you just go to what the latest you can brake there and see where that is, and you use that as a marker. And personally, I go to about somewhere between the 2 and the 1 marker. A little bit closer to the 1 if I'm feeling brave, and a little bit closer to the 2 if I'm just taking it easy.
Shifting, that's also an indication when you start to slow down, you got to change gears. How many times do you shift in a typical lap?
Well, I think it's around this course is about 16 or 17 times. I think it'd probably be a little bit more in the race, because you tend to go down the gears, like when you're at the end of the straight, say you're doing it in 5th gear and you want to go down to 2nd. Normally, when you're really trying hard, you might go 5th, 3rd, 2nd. Where in the race, you might go 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. And that saves the engine a little bit, and it saves the gearbox. But now, when you're really trying, you really whack those gears through.
How the drivers handle these corners during the running of the race, and how much they can protect that gearbox during the 500 kilometers may well determine the outcome of today's race.
And that is a situation that we've been experiencing here this afternoon. Well, from the Goodyear Airship Columbia, we follow Teo Fabi down the road course. He is now up the hill, approaching turn number 8, the sharpest turn on this 3.3-mile road course. Here he is negotiating turn number 8, coming out of it and heading down the back straightaway. Teo Fabi, the leader of this event, about a 19-second lead now on Bobby Rahal, and with almost a minute lead over John Paul Jr., those 3 cars on the lead lap. Teo Fabi moving under the overpass now and reaching maximum speed before hitting the dogleg in turn number 9.
And what a spectacular turn this is. Turn number 9 here at Riverside, one of those legendary corners in automobile racing. As Andretti told you in his soundbite a few minutes ago, you got to be fast there to be good at Riverside.
Nice follow of Teo Fabi through the road course here at Riverside, and he is now completing lap number 63. So as we move toward the later stages of this race now, Teo Fabi remains in the lead with Rahal 2nd, John Paul Jr. 3rd. Steve Chassis was running 12th. He has pulled off of the race course. He is out of the car, examining the reason why he's out of the race. Steve Chassis from Indianapolis. Well, join us on Thursday, September 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 4:30 Pacific Time for PKA Karate, the World Lightweight Championship. Cliff Thomas becomes the first fighter to try to win 3 PKA World titles. He'll tangle with undefeated Tony Rosser in a rematch for PKA's World Lightweight Championship. Thursday, September 1st at 7:30 on ESPN.
Sort of like two-man Australian football, Australian rules football. Well, not exactly. There's the leader, Teo Fabi. We got a couple of pit notes for you that we have picked up off the Championship Auto Race Team's radio. Desiree Wilson's car, as we look at Greg Leffler negotiating the course, is stuck in 1st gear. That's going to keep her speeds down, be rest assured. And Danny Angayas has radioed into his crew that he's still having some handling difficulties.
Last week when we were at Michigan International Raceway with the NASCAR drivers, we asked them a very simple question. You're a macho guy. What scares you? Well, we had a chance to sample the opinion of the IndyCar drivers.
Rick Mears last week, and we heard about everything from jumping off of a diving board to fear of snakes from Grand National drivers. What in this big bad world frightens Rick Mears, if anything?
There's a lot of things that frighten me, but I don't know. I think spiders, for one thing. I don't like spiders at all. And really, I guess the other thing is gambling. I don't like to gamble. I don't like taking chances, which doesn't really go along with my line of work.
Many things, height, roller coasters, you name it. I get up on a ladder, my knees shake, yes, very much so.
Well, most people would think it would be the junior high students I used to have, but actually it was the parents of those junior high students. That and my wife, when I'm home late at night, those are the 2 biggies.
I think primarily women who are bigger than I am.
Well, I think it's really roller coasters and spiders.
Taking off in a jumbo jet from an airport, I hate it.
Poverty.
It's breathing the air in Southern California.
Well, it hasn't been too bad. A little bit of smog obscuring the mountains, but the air hasn't been really all that bad out here in Southern California this year. It has been hot, but rather nice weather.
And a nice breeze today. It really is. think kind of saved everything. It's warm, but the breeze is brisk and it keeps everybody cool, and the humidity is down as it usually is out here. And so, all in all, I guess kind of a routine visit to Southern California and Riverside International Raceway.
Always a pleasure to come out here. We might also mention, with 30 laps to go, about our double headers coming up this fall on ESPN. The auto racing double headers that we have is Desiree Wilson has her hand in the air and headed for pit road. In September, we'll have a doubleheader involving the Indy cars at Mid-Ohio Road Course and the NASCAR competitors at Richmond, Virginia. And then in October, an auto racing doubleheader with the Indy cars in Laguna Seca, California, and the NASCAR competitors at Rockingham, North Carolina. So a lot of racing still to come this fall. Desiree Wilson into the pits. The report is that she, too, has a gear shift problem.
Well, the car was stuck in low gear. Desiree, you know, she's had an interesting year, and I think she's proved a lot. There are those who feel that she's an automatic qualifier for next year's Indianapolis 500. It's something she wants to do very much. She's had a couple of crashes this year, and her performance at Cleveland in that oppressive heat was most impressive. She was in the race all day long, remained competitive, and stuck it out right to the very end.
Well, a rather unfamiliar face on the PPG IndyCar World Series trail. Tom Klausler did not compete in either the 81 or the 82 Riverside races. He was 22nd in the Provimi Field 200 held earlier this year at Road America. Tom Klausler, who hails from Northville, Michigan.
He's had a very interesting job all year. He's been doing some of the development work on the Buick Turbo V6 with McLaren Engines people up in Livonia, Michigan. And they work out the kinks of that engine at the Transportation Center in Ohio near Marysville. It's a 7.5-mile oval. That's a little bit bigger than the 2.5 miles at Indianapolis. Each of the four corners are about a mile in length, and speeds are constant, 200 to as high as 215 miles per hour. That's how Tom Klausler has been spending his summer.
Tom Klausler negotiating the S's up the hill toward turn number 6 here at Riverside.
This chassis also is one of the unique chassis to Indianapolis type car racing. It's a Shaki. That's a version of a couple of names melted together, Schultz and McKee. It's their own chassis style. You'll see that it resembles the old Marches up front. This is a team that was also involved in Can-Am racing a couple of years ago, and one who's trying to make their mark in IndyCar type racing.
Teo Fabi continues to be the leader here at Riverside. And down to Gary Lee.
Rose Weisard, part of the husband-wife combination that owns this Desiree Wilson car 34. Your lady has her hands full right now because that car just does not want to cooperate.
That's true. Des ran out of fuel a couple of laps ago, and then all of her gears went away. She came into the pits, and the boys worked on it a little bit and gave her at least one gear, and she's out there now trying again, so we hope she'll succeed.
And I understand that one gear is now third.
It is.
It's going to be a long afternoon for Desiree Wilson.
She just hangs in there. We'll be very happy. She's a fighter all the way.
That she is, and this is Desiree's first IndyCar race here at Riverside. She resides in Forest Hills, New York. Desiree Wilson.
Howdy Holmes continues to run on the racetrack competitive. We're showing him right now in the number 4 position. He's pitted 3 times, however, in the last 20 laps. So I don't know exactly what their problem is, but Howdy would probably be on the same lap with that guy right there, Teo Fabi, had it not been for these 2 extra pit stops. Now Fabi, by our unofficial count, stopped at lap number 54. So he's got a ways that he can go yet before he has to come in again, but he will definitely have to pit one more time. Teo Fabi and the Slow Bandit carrying the same colors and numbers of the Harry Gant machine that runs the Southern Stock Car Show at the Grand Nationals.
Teo Fabi, the current leader, 23 seconds behind in second position is Bobby Rahal running third, 62 seconds behind, but still on the same lap. John Paul Jr., those 3 cars, the only cars on the lead lap. We mentioned earlier that this is the 50th race sanctioned by Championship Auto Racing teams. Pancho Carter here in car number 21 is one of 2 drivers who have competed in all but one of those races. No driver has competed in all 50, but Pancho Carter and Rick Mears have competed in 49. And Pancho Carter last year here at Riverside started 18th and finished 19th. And right now, Pancho Carter is shown in 10th position, 3 laps down Teo Fabi.
original hometown, Huntington Beach, California, the same hometowns of an internationally known high jumper, Dwight Stones, by the way. Pancho, of course, the guy who came up through the traditional way of moving up through the racing ranks in America, that is to say, the midgets and the sprint cars. He was the first guy to be not only a midget champion, but also a sprint car champion. Pancho then moved up to the championship dirt cars and, of course, on to the Indianapolis cars. We'll talk about a racing heritage. He married former Carla Forbes, whose father was involved as a driver of midgets back in the 1950s and later was a sprint car owner up into the 1970s. Pancho, of course, had a brother, Dana, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year out of natural causes, not through a racing accident. He was also very much involved. And their father, Dwayne Carter Sr., one of the most outstanding racing drivers of the Indianapolis type cars back in the late 1940s and on into the 1950s.
Well, Howdy Holmes is slowing down. He has his hand in the air going through turn number 9. We noticed as he came out of turn number 8 and Pancho passed him coming down the backstretch that Howdy was slowing down. And here is that car now out of turn number 9, headed for pit road. Howdy Holmes, who is shown in 7th position, in for a pit stop.
There's Tony Bettenhausen, who we're back into those racing heritage names, the Bettenhausen names synonymous with IndyCar or big-time racing. Anything that was a half mile or more, well, let's check that. Anything that was a circle, Bettenhausen has been on it. I guess when you think about the Bettenhausen name, the first thing that pops into my mind when you think about it historically was the great 1951 season Tony Bettenhausen Sr. had. Lee Wallard had won the Indianapolis 500 and little Ballinger number 99 machine, and Tony Bettenhausen Sr. got in that race car after Lee was burned right after the Indianapolis 500 and went on to become national champion that season, running all the remaining races on dirt, being a real master of the miles. And of course, Gary Bettenhausen, a two-time champion of the sprint car division. That's Tony's older brother. And Tony, a man who once finished second in the NASCAR late model sportsman division season championship. He has run Grand National stock cars on all the super speedways in the South, and then he stopped all of his stock car racing about 6 or 7 years ago and decided, hey, what I really want to be is an Indianapolis car driver. He actually went back to ground zero, bought himself a midget and started from scratch, and it took him about 5 years, but through a lot of hard work and dedication, not only on the racetrack, but also in the board course, came up with enough sponsorship money to become an IndyCar driver.
23.1 seconds behind. In second position is this guy, Bobby Rahal, driving car number 2. Bobby hailing from Dublin, Ohio. And he has about a 40-second advantage on third place John Paul Jr. at this time. So Bobby Rahal is certainly in the most challenging position to the leader, Taylor Bobby, at this point in the race. And we have completed now 71 laps.
Give you an idea of how safety conscious really all of big time racing has become, and in particular in this case championship auto race teams. We've had a couple of drivers in the past few laps as we watch on Gaius, who's a couple of laps down, and Bobby Rahal, who is on the lead lap just 20 seconds behind approximately our leader Tail Bobby. A couple of drivers have been black flagged in the last couple of laps for unusual driving patterns. The number 34 car of Desiree Wilson, who, as we know, is driving with that shifting problem, erratic driving. I think what they're probably referring to is the fact that she simply can't get up to speed coming out of the corners. And the number 46 car of Jerry Carl, also black flag for going too slow on the course. So we'll bring those drivers in, have a little bit of consultation, see if they can get those problems solved, and send them back out.
Well, apparently it's a broken header that has brought Howdy Holmes into the pit area. Howdy unofficially in 7th position before he encountered the problem, getting a drink of water here, still hoping that the crew can get the car fixed and back out to the racetrack. Taking the steering wheel off and unstrapping Howdy
Bob,
Holmes.
does he have tear-offs on that visor? It sure looked like
Could very well be. I wouldn't doubt it a bit. Tear-offs, of course, are used in dirt car racing, and I would imagine that enough sand and dirt collects on the racetrack, and that might require them to do that. We have a spin down out of turn number 9, entering the pit area. That's Pancho Carter, who we talked about just a few minutes ago. Pancho Carter is spun at the entrance to the pit area. There he is, crossways in the road. The CART officials there, Johnny on the spot. And I don't think Pancho made contact with anything, but the smoking engine may indicate some trouble.
Yeah, maybe that was indeed the cause for the spin. It was coming right out of turn number 9, and that corner, you're probably running, well, maybe in excess of 120, 130 miles an hour coming out of there. That's just a guess. And with all the smoke coming out of Pancho's rear end department where the engine is, it's possible that something went awry in the engine compartment, put that car out of control.
Pancho was unofficially running in 10th position, 4 laps down when the incident occurred. Teo Fabi with a 24-second lead on Bobby Rahal. John Paul Jr. is third. Fourth is Al Unser Sr. And in 5th position is Al Unser Jr. We'll be back in a moment to Riverside. Here's an interesting statistic as we have completed now 73 out of 95 laps, about 22 to go. Only 13 cars out of 27 have dropped out of the race, less than half. Much better attrition this year than last year here at Riverside International Raceway. Well, one of those who has dropped out of competition, Howdy Holmes, the driver of car number 30 because of the header problem, and he is now down in the pit area.
Bob, I am amazed on a hot Sunday afternoon here in Riverside, California, the great spirits of these drivers. When they get out of the car, you've got a chance to get refreshed, and you're in pretty good spirits. But what happened to the race car?
Headers broke. The course isn't unusually bumpy. Supposed to hit it a bump at the wrong angle, and the primary headers broke, and right up next to the exhaust manifold, and that was that.
I think the story this season has been the hot, humid weather. It's been very oppressive for the drivers. But apparently, this race is not as taxing as we first anticipated.
No, after the one in Cleveland, I couldn't be any worse. This is hot. It's over 100 degrees, but it's dry, and there's a bit of a breeze, and it's clear. There's no smog. So, I mean, you say 100 degrees, how can you drive in that? Well, it's a lot easier than 97 and 84% humidity. It really wasn't too bad.
Did we notice some tear-offs on the helmet because of all the dust and debris out there?
Well, in my case, I started with a new product, and it broke on pace lap, so I had no tear-off. So you notice I do one of these, as I leave the pits.
So Howdy Holmes still with a sense of humor out of the race in car number 30.
And our leader, Teo Fabi, is in the pits, and this is a routine stop, but I think they have a problem with the refueling mechanism. It's not a particularly good stop. There he goes. Teo Fabi back in competition, but I wouldn't consider that a good pit stop at all for Teo's team.
Well, we'll see where he comes out on the track with John Paul. John Paul Jr. just stopped. He was on the lead lap with the leader, Teo, and we'll see what the differential is when they both get back up to speed. Now, both John Paul and Teo have stopped at lap number 73, and with a 95-lap race, it's possible they have made their final pit stop.
Well, here is Al Unser Sr. in the hairpin, turn number 7, and he may have a fuel problem with this car. He's running rather slowly, and word is the fuel light may be showing red in that car, and that car we can hear as it goes through turn number 7 is missing, so I think it's a fuel problem for Al Unser Sr.
Well, he's had a great year this year. Needless to say, he's the points leader, but he's been very consistent behind the wheel. He's run up all year long. Seldom has that car even been close to being in trouble. He's had a win this year. He's had 4 second-place finishes and a third. Now, he came home in 11th in Pocono. That was his worst finish of the year.
And as Fabi came in, this gave the lead to Bobby Rahal, but now Rahal is in for his last stop and probably the last stop of the race. 74 laps completed, 21 to go. Work being done on the Bobby Rahal machine.
And we'll watch for Teo Fabi. We have found out what the problem was, Bob. The air jack broke during Bobby's stop. Now, if Rahal can get out before Teo comes around, he'll be the leader. The car is back down on the ground, and Fabi is just now entering turn number 9. Rahal accelerating down pit road. Teo enters turn number 9. There's about a 15-second difference, and there is your leader, Bobby Rahal. Watch for the green car coming out of turn number 9 now. He's still in the front stretch, maybe a 10-second difference, and Rahal comes out on top because of the pit stop.
Good stop for Bobby Rahal, and as he moved down pit road, you could see him kind of inching the car along as if to say, let's get going, let's get out there on the track before Teo Fabi comes around. Well, Al Unser Sr. has made it to the pit area. They are putting fuel in that car, and Al Unser moves back out of the race.
Now, this is interesting because as we commented, there are about 22 laps to go. I think everybody can go the distance, but you want to know something? It may be a little tight for somebody.
Jim Truman is the team manager for the Bobby Rahal organization.
You see, the team manager, he has all the bucks behind this operation. And right now, let's talk about some team strategy. Your pit work got your man back out in front. Now it's a matter of, do you have enough fuel?
We think we have enough to go all the way. By dropping the boost a little, we think our opponent might have to stop near the end. So we're going to take that chance and run a little bit slower.
Kind of a roll of the dice then.
I guess so.
All right, Jim Truman still with a smile on his face as the pit strategy continues.
All right, now let's set this thing up here as we enter the last 20 laps of the race. The leader is Bobby Rahal. Second place, Teo Bobby. And third is John Paul Jr. And in fourth position is Al Unser Jr. We have had no serious crashes in this race so far. A couple of cars have spun off the course and done some body damage to the car, but nothing of any consequence. Here is the leader, Bobby Rahal, off of turn number 9, completing lap number 76.
Al Unser Sr. stuck in gear. That will set him back. Let's go back to this Bobby Rahal story. You heard Jim Truman say, as we look at his driver there, Bobby Rahal, we think our opponent, referring to Teo Fabi, has to stop again. Fabi only went 19 laps between his last 2 stops. Now, they may have been holding something back. Maybe he has the capability of going 22 laps, but he only went 19 laps the last time. Truman and company apparently monitoring that situation and knowing that they can go about 22 or 23, feel as though they're going to get a distance. That car right there without any more stops. He leads the race. He's about 10 seconds ahead of Teo. They think that Bobby has to stop one more time. Now, if that is the case, if Bobby and his crew know they have to stop, watch for Teo to charge like all Billy Hepp. They'll try to get around try to get around Bobby Rahal, build up a big lead, and then stop late on and try to race out of the pits and hope to come out just about the same time that Bobby goes by.
We did have 3 cars on the lead lap. Now there are 4 cars on the lead lap as Al Unser Jr. has unlapped himself, and although he's almost a lap behind, he is indeed on the lead lap. When we talk to the Rahal crew, now let's visit the crew of the Forsyth brothers who own the car driven by Teo Fabi.
Jerry Forsyth, and we've talked to Jim Truman. We know what their pit strategy is. Let us in on yours.
We'd like to know what Jim's is first. We made our last pit stop.
You have enough fuel to go the distance even with a yellow?
Definitely.
Boost up or down?
That's up to Teo.
How is Teo feeling? He had the flu this week.
He wasn't feeling too well a day or 2 ago, but yesterday he felt a little better. Today he was just halfway. He wasn't feeling good and he wasn't feeling bad. You did an excellent job out there with the conditions that they are today.
All the money that's coming out of your pocketbook, how do you feel right now?
We feel great. You're doing an excellent job.
Jerry Forsyth, happy, the co-owner of the Skull Bandit.
And off the racetrack once again is Desiree Wilson. Looks like she's behind a guardrail in whatever portion of the racetrack that is. So Desiree continuing to have her problems here this afternoon.
Okay, so both of the top teams, at least the top teams in this race to this point, Rahal, there he is, and Bobby in car number 33. They say they're going to go the distance. A check of the records will prove that certainly Rahal has the potential to go the distance. Maybe Bobby and people are cutting it just a little tight. The boost in Bobby's cockpit could be a real critical item.
We will be back with more from the Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500 in just a moment. Got to give this guy credit. Al Unser Jr. has not given up. He led the race, fell a lap down. Now he has unlapped himself, and although he is officially 75 seconds or almost a lap down to the leader, Bobby Rahal, he's hanging in there in 4th position.
Hanging in there and moving pretty fast. We're going to start clocking this guy just to see how fast he is running relative to Rahal and Bobby. It's possible he, again, for maybe the 4th or 5th time this season, late in the race, is the fastest car on the racetrack. So we'll watch this situation closely as these final 15 to 16 laps or so wind down.
More on the Al Unser Jr. situation from Gary Lee.
Bob, ask any basketball or football coach. They will tell you the subs are just as important as the mainliners. This is a sub. It's the backup car for Al Unser Jr. Now, most teams will kind of second guess what spare parts they may need for the race. This, of course, is an auto parts store. They simply bring out the backup car or the team car, and no matter what they might need during the course of the race, they can take it off of this car. In fact, if they wanted to and to take the time, they could change the engine.
Al Unser Jr. approaching Tom Klausler in turn number 7 for Riverside, still running in 4th position. One of the honors handed out at the end of the season for the Car Teams IndyCar World Series is the Rookie of the Year award. And of course, Al Unser Jr. is very much in contention for that award. He has 53 points accumulated so far. Teo Fabi has 50, John Paul Jr. 45, and Chris Nigel 10. So the battle among the top 3 drivers here is a pretty good one, separated by 8 points.
Fabi, as a matter of fact, picked up 1 additional point for being the fastest qualifier at Riverside, so the difference is now only 2.
While we watch his son, Al Unser Jr. on the racetrack, we talk with his dad, Al Unser Sr.
Unfortunately, the first time we've had a chance to talk to Al Unser Sr. during the running of one of these car championship races, because this is the first race you've not finished this season.
So far, yeah, it's one of those things.
What was the problem?
Transmission let go.
I know what a proud papa you are, and even though you're disappointed to be out yourself, you got to have great pride for that kid of yours out there.
That I do. I'm very proud of him.
Got to watch the rest of the race and cheer on Al Jr.?
That I am.
I see a big smile. There it is. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you, Al, for taking time to talk with us. Here is Al Unser Jr. right now, still running in 4th position, about 78 seconds behind the leader, but nevertheless on the lead lap. On the lead is Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi second, and John Paul Jr. is third. The interval between first and second about 6 seconds, and then the interval back to third place is 33 seconds. So Bobby Rahal is looking good here, but Teo Fabi is certainly in a position to also win this race.
We get word now from the kart officials that the number 23 car of Teo Fabi will be displaying the black flag. It will be a stop-and-go penalty for apparently running over the air hose. Black flag imminent for Teo Fabi. This could be the break for Rahal that will win him the race.
Very interesting situation. Here is Teo Fabi moving out of turn number 8 down the backstretch. The official starter for kart does have the black flag in hand, and we anticipate it being shown to Teo Fabi this time around. He moves through the dog leg into turn number 9. As Bobby Rahal, the leader of the race, moves off of turn number 9. Teo Fabi is in the middle of the turn. And indeed, the black flag is being shown and the board being displayed. Number 33 black flagged, and he'll have to come in next time around for a stop-and-go penalty.
Let's recall that John Paul Jr. was black flagged earlier in the race. Now, this does not include a lap penalty, remember. You just have to stop and pause for an oil cooler that was loose. Hopefully, they've solved that problem as John Paul now moves up to the runner-up position. At least he will when Teo pits. The number 20 car of Danny Ongaias within the last 5 minutes has also stopped on course out of race, as has Desiree Wilson. So attrition beginning to accumulate here, but up front, things have been stable for quite a while until this development with Teo Fabi getting the black flag.
Bobby Rahal won 2 races last year in his rookie season. Has not won a race so far this year, but is in the lead at this point. The last race he won was at Michigan International Speedway almost a year ago. Teo Fabi, we're watching him to see if he does heed the black flag that was displayed to him last lap. Here he is in turn number 8. Now onto the back stretch, about a half a lap before we'll know whether or not he heeds the black flag and comes in for the penalty.
81 laps are now complete. We have 14 laps to go, or about 42, 43 miles or so on this 3.3 mile road course. Fabi looking for him to come into the pits this time. That's the entry to turn number 9. You see him, he's running about a half a lane off the bottom of the racetrack. That's where it gets the fastest during the latter stages of the race. He should be ducking into the pits this time. He does.
And he is. The hand goes up, signaling to the drivers in back of him, except there weren't any drivers in back of him, but he nevertheless did that as a safety precaution. The stop and the go. Teo Fabi back out there. Really didn't lose much. Will not lose the position because we do not yet. Now we see John Paul just blasting out of the overpass on the backstretch. So Teo Fabi will not lose the position, but will lose a few seconds to the leader. Back with more live coverage from Riverside International Raceway in a moment. The leader is Bobby Rahal.
Mr.
Charles Russell piloting the Airship Columbia from the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, hovering over Riverside International Raceway. We're representing live for you today the 500-kilometer IndyCar event. And at this point, with 83 laps completed, the leader is Bobby Rahal. Teo Fabi running second. John Paul Jr. is third. Al Unser Jr. is fourth. Those cars on the lead lap. And 2 laps down in 5th position is Tom Sneva. About a 24-second advantage for Bobby Rahal over Teo Fabi. So Fabi lost about 15 or 20 seconds when he had to come in for that penalty stop because he ran over an air hose on his last pit stop. He did not lose a position, but did lose about 15 or 20 seconds. So we approach the late stages of this race. It looks like that Bobby Rahal is on his way to victory, but Teo Fabi would like to win 2 in a row.
Ever since launching, the Voyager has been sending back fantastic pictures from the road. The Voyager radial tire from Kelly Springfield, delivering all the treadwear, delivering all the traction, delivering all the fuel economy our computer said it would. The Kelly Voyager Radial. We put space technology on the road. Kelly Springfield. We're out to change America's tires.
Thursday, PKA Championship Karate explodes with a battle for the World Lightweight crown. Cliff Thomas and Tony Rosser tangled again for the title. Next, junior middleweight knockout action at its best. Top-ranked boxing packs raw punching power when Buster Drayton meets Mario Maldonado live. At the Sports Center, grab for some gridiron nostalgia with the NFL's Legends of the Fall. Pro football's immortal stars sparkle on the NFL's greatest moments. All Thursday on ESPN.
This is the high side of the racetrack in turn number 6 where some repaving was done, and you can see that it's beginning to break up and these little tiny pebbles beginning to form on the high side of the racetrack that makes for a very slick pavement.
Yeah, that's the same corner that we pointed out to you a little earlier, and also the one that Mario Andretti referred to in his interview after he dropped out with Gary Lee.
It's about a 23-second lead for Bobby Rahal over Teo Fabi, with John Paul Jr. running around about 41 seconds behind the leader. Here is Bobby Rahal going to the high side of Jerry Carl. Al Unser Jr. came in for a pit stop a lap ago, and we believe he went a lap down now. He had unlapped himself, but yes, indeed, we get the update from Data Speed Scoring, and Al Unser Jr. is still in 4th position, but he is 1 lap down.
The other people still out on the racetrack, Tom Klausler in car number 48, Pancho Carter, despite that spin and all the smoke we saw coming from what we thought to be the engine compartment, remains out there. Tom Sneva, Tony Bettenhausen, Roger Mears, and Jerry Carl.
Jerry Carl, the driver of car number 46. Jerry started this race in 26th position, qualifying at 92.474 miles an hour. Jerry Carl last year in this race started in 26th position and finished 12th as Al Unser Jr. passes him.
Jerry Carl started driving back in 1956 in stock cars where he won often out east. His father was a Wall Street coffee broker who did not approve of his driving race cars and never really got involved in Jerry's career. The approval didn't really come along until Jerry got up to the Indianapolis level of automobile racing. In 1958, he was living in Valley Stream, Long Island, when he really started to win with a great deal of regularity. He has struggled in an effort to get a steady, solid Indianapolis car ride for about the past 5 or 6 seasons, and the quest still continues for Jerry Carl.
So 85 laps have now been completed. We have 10 to go, and here is the leader of the race, Bobby Rahal, moving through turn number 9. And when he crosses the start-finish line, he will have 9 laps to go. Bobby Rahal looking for his 3rd win in Indy cars. Crossing the start-finish line right there with still about a 24-second advantage on Teo Fabi. 3 cars on the lead lap. Al Unser Jr. made a pit stop. That's now a lap down in 4th. Tom Sneva is in 5th. 6th is Tom Klausler, and a good ride for him. In 7th position is Pancho Carter. 8th is car number 10, Tony Bettenhausen. 9th is Danny Ungaius, and 10th is car number 9, Roger Mears. And a very relaxed pit crew there.
Okay, remembering once again, they went 21 laps, Bobby Rahal did, between their last pit stops, lap 52 and lap number 73. If they can only do 21 laps, they're going to be 2 laps short. But obviously, they've been watching the gauge and checking their mileage, and they feel as though they're capable of doing 22 laps. That's all it's going to take. They got to go 95 to complete this race.
The average average speed of this race to this point, as we have 3 cars on the lead lap, is 112.646 miles an hour. Not a bad average speed for as long and demanding as this race is. Here's Bobby Rahal moving down the backstretch once again. Taking the lead. Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500-kilometer race. The next time we will join you will be for a live event at Mid-Ohio in just north of Columbus, Ohio, on also a road course. We've been told that Bobby Rahal is running with the boost turn completely down in an effort to save the fuel. He's still maintaining a pretty good advantage on Teo Fabi.
Well, he has about a 30-second lead with about 8 laps to go, and it seems to be a comfortable lead. You know, we're out in Riverside, California, not too far from the metropolitan area of Los Angeles. There's a city there called Corona del Mar, and I'd like to make a comment about the passing of somebody who was very important in the history of automobile racing. Red Carruthers, who really revolutionized midget auto racing more than 10 years ago when he was the first one to install a Volkswagen engine in a midget. Up to that time, there was only the Offenhausers, and nothing else really was competitive, and a lot of people laughed when they started talking about putting a Volkswagen in an engine. Where Red Carruthers, with his then driver, Bobby Olivero, really showed him, and midget racing has never been the same since, and Red succumbed to cancer just a couple weeks back. We also like to make comment about another open-wheel racer who was a friend to some of the guys who are running in this race today. People like Pancho Carter and Steve Chassie and Greg Liff, who raced with him on the sprint car circuit. Jerry Pullen from New Carlisle, Ohio, just from the Dayton area, also died of cancer within the last month. We send our condolences along to the family, and I'll tell you, their memories are forever burned in our mind.
Teo Fabi has lost a few seconds in the last lap. He has now slipped to more than 30 seconds behind Bobby Rahal. So perhaps Teo Fabi also has the boost turned down in an effort to save on the fuel and is dropping back just ever so slightly on Bobby Rahal. Here is Teo Fabi moving through turn number 8 onto the backstretch. Meanwhile, the leader of the race, Bobby Rahal, just now crossing the start-finish line, completing lap number 89 with 6 laps to go.
They first raced here at Riverside in Indianapolis-type cars back in November of 1967, and I think it was only appropriate that one Daniel Gurney was the victor of that race. But listen to some of the other names that were in that race as we tune into this battle shaping up. Al Unser Jr. again goes back to pecking and back to fighting. He's trying to get back on the lead lap with just about 7 or 8 laps to go in this race. There's Al Unser Jr. in that white red trim car following Bobby Rahal. And look at him accelerate. Remember that Bobby Rahal has the boost turned down, and he knows that little Al is more than a lap down. So Bobby moves over and lets little Al go by. Again, those names that were in that race back in 1967, Jerry Titus, who finished 10th. Listen to this, John Surtees in an Indianapolis car in 1967, Mel Kenyon, who later gave up the Indy cars to concentrate on midget racing, Jimmy Clark, Bob Hurt, and Bud Tinglestad.
So Al Unser Jr. is back on the lead lap. Although he's just running slightly ahead of Bobby Rahal, he is on the lead lap, running in 4th position. The only 4 cars on the lead lap this time: Bobby Rahal, Teo Fabi, John Paul Jr., and Al Unser Jr. Down the backstretch into the dog leg, setting up for turn number 9. This would be the completion of lap number 90 when Bobby Rahal comes around and crosses the start-finish line. We will have 5 laps to go. The question is, does he have the fuel to complete the distance? We'll answer that question in a moment. Well, we've talked about the 4 cars on the lead lap. Here is the driver who is in 5th position, Tom Sneva, who now makes his home in the Phoenix, Arizona area after having resided in the Pacific Northwest for several years. Tom Sneva running 5th in that Texaco Star. Right ahead of him is Pancho Carter. Tom Sneva doing well here in this race on the road course.
Yeah, a guy who hadn't really planned on making a career out of driving race cars, but he had so much success in the super modifieds that the USAC sprint car circuit beckoned him to the Midwest when the rear engine cars were legal. And he was so successful in the rear engine sprint cars, they said, hey, you ought to come over and try Indianapolis car racing. And all of a sudden, Tom Sneva, in about a 2-year period, was transformed from a school teacher and principal to a professional racing driver.
Tom Sneva off of turn number 9. Right behind him, Pancho Carter running in 6th position. Tom Klausler, who's also doing an excellent job here this afternoon. We go through turn number 1 once again, headed for the series of misses. We'll take them uphill into turn number 6, where most of the accidents have occurred here today, although again, we repeat, we have had no serious accidents in this 500-kilometer race. A couple of cars into the wall with minor damage, but no driver injuries that we know of. Nick Simon, of course, involved in that horrendous accident last year. We've seen nothing like that this afternoon.
Well, there's Klausler again in the bright yellow number 48 race car that we've talked about earlier, the Shaki, the combination of Schultz and McKee names. He's really had a strong day. He's run a competitive speed. He's been in the top 10 for most of the last third of the race. He did run the Elkhart Lake race. He made the show there as the 18th fastest qualifier. And right now, he is 6th in line in this race as we come down near the end. They came with 4 engines to the track this weekend. They've already used up 3. It looks like third time is the charm for this team, at least when it comes to power plants.
Tom Klausler driving car number 48. Tom hailing, as we indicated earlier, from Michigan. His wife Victorienne has a child, Jennifer. And the car owner is Doug Schultz from Scottsdale, Arizona. We go back up front and check on the leader, Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio. Now with a 30.3-second lead on Teo Fabi, and 92 laps completed. When he comes around this time, it'll be 93. Then the next time, it'll be the white flag.
Bobby Rahal, who won twice a year ago. We saw him win both of those times, as a matter of fact, on ESPN when he won at the Michigan International Speedway, the high bank, 18 degrees, that's high bank for Indianapolis type cars, in one of the shorter races on the trail, and he won one of the endurance contests at Michigan, or rather at Cleveland, also in the middle of the 1982 season. They have not won yet this year, and I think they kind of expected to have had a victory by this point in the season. We told you earlier in this broadcast that they have been very competitive, and it's been a series of varying different kinds of problems that have sidelined them a number of times this season. They were involved in that chain reaction collision at the restart, the aborted restart of the race in Cleveland. They kind of thought they had that one in their hip pocket. Bobby himself personally very disappointed over that particular race, but today he's been one of those guys who has just stayed in the thick of things all day long. They've run what has appeared to us up here to be a perfect race. Rahal has raced when it was necessary, diced when it was necessary. But when you think back about this race, Rahal hasn't done nearly the racing, and he hasn't pushed his race car nearly as hard as a lot of the other fellow competitors who are still out there on the track. It's been a smooth run for Rahal, and if he wins today, he will be the 7th different winner in 8 races on the trail. Only Tom Sneva, with those back-to-back victories, Indianapolis and Milwaukee, has won twice.
9 cars are still out there on the track competing. We mentioned this is the 50th race sanctioned by CART, and they have already announced at least 2 additions for next year. They'll be running in Las Vegas. They'll be running also in Long Beach, and they'll be running in Portland, Oregon, through the streets of Portland, Oregon. That should be a very interesting situation. That race will come next year. So championship auto racing teams expanding their schedule and providing entertainment for fans throughout the United States. And of course, they also have a race scheduled in the Meadowlands in New Jersey on the East Coast next year.
Bobby Rahal continues to truck around the 3.3 miles. We're coming up on lap number 94, the next time that he will flash down the front stretch here, the home stretch in front of the main grandstands and all the press box area. 3.3 mile road course, and it's a demanding one. It's also a course that you have to attack to be competitive. There are a couple of places on this racetrack. Right there is one of them where you're going at a pretty good clip for a road course, and Rahal has handled it pretty well and pretty smoothly today. Coming out of turn number 9, the shadows to the finish line to complete lap number 94. We believe the white flags did come out, was displayed for Bobby Rahal.
So this is the last lap for Bobby Rahal. We'll follow him through the S's here. Again, he has about a 30-second advantage on Teo Fabi and about a 57-second lead on John Paul Jr. in 3rd position, and just about a lap lead on Al Unser Jr. Those 4 cars on the lead lap here at Riverside.
Well, the Hilton Hang Tough Award has already been awarded for the race today. It's going to go to Al Unser Jr. I got to say, I don't think there was any other choice they could have made.
This is turn number 7 for Bobby Rahal. through it, up the hill, headed for turn number 8, the tight hairpin. The last real challenge for Bobby Rahal on this 3.3-mile road course. He gets through that okay. He needs to go down the long backstretch and then into the sweeping turn number 9 that will carry him to the start-finish line and a checkered flag victory this afternoon. White flag being displayed to the other drivers as they pass across the start-finish line here. Now Rahal gaining some speed coming down the backstretch. Looks like he has the situation well in hand. He went around a slower car there on the backstretch and looked like it.
Sure was, Al Unser Jr. There's also an award called the Provimi Pass Standings. It's an award each race for the driver who passes the most cars, and it's accumulative over the season. Tony Bettenhausen led those standings coming into this race. Klausler started 27th. He's going to finish 6th, it looks like. Hands down, Provimi Pass winner today, Klausler.
The checkered flag is out for Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio. He raises his hand in victory. Bobby Rahal and the Sleep Cheap Red Roof Inn's crew has won this 500-kilometer race here in Riverside, California. Teo Fabi is just now entering turn number 9. He's going to end up in 2nd position as Al Unser Jr. is out of fuel and is also just entering turn number 9. Teo Fabi in the middle of turn number 9 now, off of it, onto the straightaway. He too receives the double checker flags. Teo Fabi finishes in 2nd position. Finishing 3rd is going to be John Paul Jr. There is the winner, Bobby Rahal. He's being saluted by the corner workers up in turn number 6. We'll be back with post-race comments in just a moment. Bobby Rahal is on his victory lap. You can see him waving to the crowd gathered around this 3.3-mile road course. He's just gone under the overpass in the backstretch. It'll be a few more minutes before he can get to victory lane. But all 3 of the wins for Bobby Rahal have been live on ESPN.
He ought to send us a check. And speaking about money, the total winnings for Rahal today, by the way, over $39,000 of an almost $240,000 purse here at Riverside.
Bobby Rahal started this race in 4th position and comes on to win. Desiree Wilson, meanwhile, had a tough day. She had gearbox problems and one thing and another, got off the course a couple of times, finally just pulled off the course and called it quits. Well, Bobby Rahal is just now moving into the pit area, so the victory lane area is down to our left. It'll be a while before he gets there, so we'll have the victory lane interview with Bobby Rahal after this.
Tuesday, follow the Formula One circuit to the Netherlands. Auto Racing 83 brings you the Dutch Grand Prix here on ESPN.
He looks like a tired young race driver, but he's a very happy one, getting a drink there to refresh himself before climbing out of his race car. Bobby Rahal has won this 500-kilometer event here at Riverside on a very hot afternoon.
The official report on Al Unser Jr. was that he did indeed run out of fuel on that last lap, so despite all their problems, they were able to stretch sort of the last ounce of fuel out of that race car so that he could finish the race. This is the first win again of this year for Bobby Rahal. This is a team that really came together as a gigantic surprise. They were probably the biggest surprise of the 1982 racing season when they came up with those 2 victories. His first win was on an oval. Nobody really expected that because Bobby was a road racer. They came into 83 with great expectations.
Well, obviously, Bobby Rahal is a little bit exhausted here because of the hot weather. You can see members of the crew trying to cool him off. So we're going to let him cool off before we talk to him. But Bobby Rahal has been the winner in an excellent showing here in the hot sunshine.
Well, we had a captive audience for a while because you were stuck in the cockpit of the race car. You couldn't get the steering wheel off. First of all, when we chatted in the hotel lobby this morning, we had no idea we'd be talking again in a few hours in Victory Lane. Congratulations.
Well, we figured we were due, and I'm just really pleased that we could do it for me, obviously, but mostly for the crew that worked real hard all year, and my sponsors, you know, Red Roof Inns and Kravari, and I only wish my wife was here. She's back home in Ohio. So, I love you, Deb.
We have to characterize this race as, first of all, a very smart race from the cockpit, And also, the fuel stops were so efficient. The pit crew got you in and got you out in a hurry.
Well, really, I was driving to Steve Horn's direction, and we had to save fuel, so that's why we weren't going so quick in the middle part of the race. But it worked out for us, and God, I'm just thrilled.
We know, even though this is only your second year on the circuit, you won twice last year, you really felt like you were the guy that should win the Cleveland race. It was a bitter disappointment because you had the home state fans there. Does this make up for it?
Oh, I think a little bit, sure, certainly. Anytime you can win, you've got to be happy with that. And I'm just happy we won. You know, we've been right at the verge so many times this year and for little things. And today everything went our way, and I think maybe now we've gotten over our bad luck, and now we can go out and win some more.
And in 2 weeks, it's the home track in Lexington, Ohio, Mid-Ohio.
Yeah, we're loaded for bear for that one.
We'll have it live. Congratulations. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks.
All right, let's review the top 5 once again. Bobby Rahal, the winner. Teo Fabi finishes in 2nd position. John Paul Jr. is 3rd. Al Unser Jr. is 4th. And Tom Sneva finishes in 5th position. Back at Riverside, California, Bobby Rahal is 1, Teo Fabi 2nd, John Paul Jr. 3rd. 4th place was Al Unser Jr., 5th Tom Sneva, and 6th was Tom Klauser, then Pancho Carter, followed by Tony Bettenhausen and Roger Mears. 95 laps complete. The time of the race, 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 25 seconds. The average speed, 113.701. Your final comments, Larry?
Well, 12 lead changes among 5 drivers. Quite a good number of lead changes considering we only had 2 general caution flags. In addition to Rahal, Unser Jr., John Paul Jr., Fabi, and Andretti were also race leaders.
Once again, the top 5 here at Riverside, California. Bobby Rahal, the winner. Teo Fabi 2nd, John Paul Jr. 3rd, Al Unser Jr. 4th, and Tom Sneva finishes in 5th. The Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500 has been brought to you by Kelly Springfield. We're out to change America's tires. And by Pontiac. Test drive a new Pontiac at your Pontiac dealer, because at Pontiac,